Most people imagine the mark on the 144,000 as a tattoo, a glowing symbol, or some supernatural branding that suddenly appears on their skin. But what if the mark is not what modern Christians think? What if the forehead mark is actually tied to something ancient, something priestly, something that's rooted in the oldest rituals of Israel? And what if Revelation isn't describing a physical mark at all, but a priestly commissioning that goes all the way back to Moses, Ezekiel, and the temple? In this video, I'm going to show you why the mark on the 144,000 is not cosmetic, not tribal, and definitely not random. This is a sign that only God can place, and a seal only priestly people can carry. Ask most believers what the mark on the forehead is, and you may hear things like a supernatural tattoo, a literal Hebrew letter, a glowing symbol from heaven. But Revelation never says the mark is visual to human eyes. In fact, Scripture actually tells us the opposite. Revelation says the 144,000 have the name of the Father written on their foreheads, but it never says human eyes see it. Scholars agree that this image is symbolic, not literal. One notes that the seal on the foreheads signifies not a physical mark, but a symbolic way of speaking about God's ownership and protection. The mark is not ink, it's identity. It's God declaring that these ones belong to me. And this actually makes sense because Revelation is filled with symbolism that point to something far more ancient than ink. Priestly consecration, temple identity, and covenant ownership. The 144,000 are marked the same way that ancient priests were marked by God himself. To understand the mark on the forehead, we actually have to go back to the book of Exodus. In Exodus 28:36-38, the high priest wore a golden plate engraved with "Holy to Yahweh," and it sat on his forehead as a public sign of consecration, holiness, divine ownership, and priestly representation. One scholar makes this connection explicitly to the 144,000, and he says, the seal on the foreheads of the 144,000 is modeled on the high priest's inscription, a sign of consecration to God. So the mark on the 144,000 is priestly, not decorative. It means that they are set apart for holy service to God. Every priest carried God's name on their body as a sign that they belonged to him, they represented him, and they were set apart for holy service. Revelation picks up on this exact same imagery. Revelation actually doesn't invent the forehead mark. John actually used themes from Ezekiel. In Ezekiel 9, in his vision, God sends an angel through Jerusalem to place a mark on the foreheads of those who are faithful to him. Not a logo, not a glowing symbol, not a visible tattoo. It's a spiritual mark of protection that can be seen by God, not necessarily by earthly people. And here's the verse that Revelation is drawing from. Ezekiel 9 describes an angel marking the foreheads of the faithful remnant before judgment comes on Jerusalem. That mark is the Hebrew tav. It was not visible. The mark tav in Ezekiel 9 was actually a sign of divine protection for those who were loyal to Yahweh. It wasn't a visible inscription. The 144,000 are marked in this same way. A heavenly messenger applies it. It happens in a single prophetic moment. It identifies who's really for God, and it protects them during judgment. It distinguishes them as God's priestly people. So this isn't about optics. This is about recognition in the unseen realm. If it's not ink, if it's not visible, if it's not just a symbol for the 144,000, then what is it? Scripture actually gives us the exact answer. The mark is God's name. It's not a picture and it's not a code. Revelation 14:1 says the 144,000 stand with the Lamb, having his name and his Father's name written on their foreheads. The 144,000 are described as blameless, undefiled, truthful, loyal, obedient, to Jesus. This is not the description of people who receive a magical or random symbol. It's the description of disciples whose lives have been formed into obedience. This means that the mark is a priestly commissioning. You're recognized by heaven, its covenant identity, and its spiritual protection, with God giving them delegated authority over darkness. The demons of Revelation don't flee from ink, they flee from ownership. God's name is the mark, and his name is power. The 144,000 are sealed before God's judgments begin. And why? Is because God never sends an unprepared priesthood into crisis. The mark is God's way of saying, these ones are mine. These ones are ready. These ones have been trained in purity, worship, endurance, and loyalty. The mark of the 144,000 is not about cosmetics. It's about character. It's not about symbols. It's about surrender. The ones who receive the mark aren't the loudest people online. They're the most yielded people in secret. They're the ones who are pure, the ones who are faithful, the ones who are obedient, the ones who are uncompromised, the ones who are consecrated. This doesn't mean they're perfect, but that they're surrendered to God in everything. This mark is not random. It's the culmination of a life that belongs wholly to God. If you want God's name written on your life, then become a person who God can trust to bear his name. Stop compromising. Purify yourself. Return to holiness. Choose consecration, because the mark comes after the devotion, not before it. And when God seals his remnant in the final hour, he will not seal those who are proud or who are boastful or who are self-appointed. He will seal those who are humble, the ones who are faithful, and the ones who said yes when no one else did. The question should not be, are we living in the time when God will mark the 144,000? The real question you should be asking is my life consecrated enough for God to place his name on me? Because the mark is not about the forehead, it's about the heart. If you're ready to walk into deeper consecration, watch the next video here. Your training starts now.